On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, we've got the Auburn preview for you guys. We brought on Adam Cole. He's the Auburn athletics writer from the Opelika-Auburn News. So we got a guy in the know of Auburn. Talked with him for about 50 minutes, just mostly previewing the game. Obviously, gave his take kind of on Auburn, both, with what Mizzou can maybe do to hurt them, what Auburn can do to hurt Mizzou on Saturday. Just went a deep dive, talked a little about Auburn as a program, and just talked with Adam. It was just a great interview, a good chance to catch up. Adam's a Mizzou grad himself, so he has a little bit of stake, a little bit of knowledge of the Mizzou side of things as well. So great interview with him, like I said, previewing the game. We did our picks and injury report before that because we recorded that part of the show on Thursday after the SEC availability report came out. So we have that and our predictions to start, and then you'll hear our interview with Adam Cole and kind of got his take on everything. So yeah, it was a great interview with him. Then we finished with quick hits. Talked to the Tigers in the NFL, talked a whole bunch of basketball because there was SEC media days. There was an exhibition that got scheduled. So talked a whole bunch of Mizzou men's basketball to close the show. So packed one for you guys, a great one to enjoy as you're maybe driving back to Mizzou for homecoming if you're doing that, or if you're already there, crank on the show at the pregame. Nothing better than the unwritten rule at the at the pregame or the Friday night before. Who knows? So yeah, great show, great conversation with Adam. Won't dilly-dally any further. Let's get to it. The unwritten rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Payton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, October 18th, and we've got the Auburn preview. We're going to talk to Adam Cole. Had a good interview with him from the Opelika-Auburn News, the Auburn athletics beat reporter. Previewed the game with him kind of in depth, so just wanted to hop on before because we recorded that interview on Wednesday, and that was before the injury or availability report came out for the SEC for Mizzou against Auburn. So we're gonna touch on that. But first of all, Peyton, Kenny, just general vibes. I know we previewed the game with Adam. Now we're recording the rest of this on Thursday here. How are we feeling generally about this game? Then we'll do injury report, and then we'll get our predictions.
Honestly, about this game, I'm not very concerned. Auburn is not a very good football team. We'll get into it with Adam. People will see. Auburn secondary is very susceptible, so it's a good opportunity for Brady Cook and co to really kind of get things going before the most crucial stretch of your season coming up. Vibes just in general still not very good. UMass told us nothing. Quite frankly, that was a useless game. I know a lot of people are talking up Auburn coming out of a bye week here. Mizzou had a bye week last week. That was not a game they cared about. That was not a game anyone was ever remotely concerned about them losing. That was a bye week. But still, the taste of that Texas A&M game is going to stay in your mouth until they do something that really, it would take them going out and really emphatically beating Auburn for me to probably be like, okay, maybe they can get this ship kind of righted, and it helps that it's been so chaotic. A lot of teams in front of them are losing. It's doing a lot for Missouri's playoff hopes, but quite frankly, I still think they're in the situation where they have to beat Alabama to make it, and if they don't, they're probably not going to make it. And I just have no faith that they're going to do that at this point in time.
Yeah, the team isn't comparable to probably Vanderbilt or even, not even Texas A&M, but I'm not close to Vanderbilt either. This team is probably not going to beat Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt's in a good spot right now. And so it's one of those games where you want to get right against an SEC team that you can beat. You have the weapons to beat them, even with some of these injuries to the defense. This team should come away with a win against Auburn and kind of find its footing again in the SEC play. just kind of moving forward. It's just a kind of a building block, and you don't want to overlook Auburn at all. You've seen that in the past where some of those overlook a weaker SEC team this season, but it's also a game you just kind of want to make a statement and move forward with.
This feels really weird to me because I feel like normally I'm kind of the radical optimist of the three of us at times. I'm kind of the opposite. I think this season could go off the rails this week, and we can talk about it when we get into our score prediction. But I'm kind of worried about pretty much everybody Mizzou's going to play. I know Auburn's not a good team, and like Payton said, we'll talk about it with Adam. We'll preview it, and Adam didn't exactly, to give a tease to that interview, didn't exactly give a ringing endorsement of Auburn either. But I don't know. I've got a bad feeling. We'll get into it, and maybe that bad feeling stems from what's on the screen right now. If you're watching on the YouTube, I had to pretend to ignore that. While we were just asking what our vibes are. But injuries for Mizzou have hit hard heading into this week. Obviously, if you're looking on the screen on the YouTube right now, tweet from Callum McAndrew, a good friend of the program. Eli Drinkwitz says defensive end Joe Moore and linebacker Khalil Jacobs have both suffered season-ending injuries. So not only will neither players be available for Auburn, it looks like their season is over. And to a defensive unit that is already, showed its vulnerability a little bit, definitely a blow. I feel like the defensive front, and to the extent the linebackers were the better part of this defense, and now you have you're real thin to me with these two out. What do you guys think?
The D end room, I mean, is just paper thin now. I mean, it's really Joe Moore and Darius Smith both being out is pretty bad for Mizzou. I don't know if Joe Moore has any eligibility left. I certainly hope he does, because he's a very nice rotational piece for them to have. And I really hope that is not the way his career comes to an end. Although I do think he also would qualify for maybe a medical red shirt, correct? I could be wrong on that, but okay, he does have eligibility for 2025 if Mizzou's actual roster page is correct. So that's good. It is just a bummer, though. I mean, Knowlton, you also mentioned it. The linebackers for as shaky as just the entire team has been, the linebacker play has been pretty steady, and Khalil Jacobs was a part of that. I mean, he had a few plays where he would stand out on a blitz or just really have, it seemed like he had very, very good speed. More so, he didn't play a whole ton of snaps, but it seemed like he was a guy that was making the most of his opportunities. Him and Flagg definitely both were kind of standouts to me. Chuck Hicks has really kind of, and Tristan Newsome, who has dealt with injury, both have kind of been up and down to me. So I thought Khalil Jacobs was maybe going to get more and more playing time, but it's a hit to depth, which is something that Mizzou really was lucky with last year in that fateful 11-win season. I don't recall any serious injuries to guys that kind of took them out for long swabs of time. I know Ennis had moments where he wasn't able to play. Chad Bailey, I think, would maybe be the big one as well. Tyron Hopper missed the last couple of games, but I mean, they didn't have this many guys out for the season already. So it's a bummer for them. Tough for Mizzou's depth, but it's the next man up.
Yeah, it's always just kind of a sucky thing too when you're looking at a team that's it's seen already its ups and downs through 6 games, and then you have guys that you didn't really know were maybe dealing with something. Joe Moore was kind of like a thing that just popped up late right before that Massachusetts game, and then Khalil Jacobs goes down in that game. So just kind of looking at that out for the rest of the year, it's like Darius Smith, Sam Horn, who had Tommy John surgery, and Darius Smith, who got injured before the season, and then Khalil Jacobs and Joe Moore. And it's just like guys that you thought maybe would, I mean, a couple of those probably would have been starting options. Other ones would be a great depth of the season. So now you're going to see 4 outs for the remainder of the year. It's just, another thing, just kind of looking forward for the season. When you don't have guys like that, it's just kind of makes you worry a little bit more about the postseason opportunities for this team.
Yeah, I agree with both of your guys. Just to run through the availability report quickly for Mizzou now that it's updated. Darius Smith and Sam Horn, of course, we knew about them all season. So add Khalil Jacobs and Joe Moore to that list, those will be the 4 guys that'll say out for the rest of the year on these availability reports. Nate Noel and Tristan Newson questionable. That'll be interesting to watch. I mean, I hope Nate Noel was able to get his situation corrected. And this is the Wednesday availability report. There's still a couple more that'll come out, through the rest of the week. So he could very well be probable on the Friday one, probable on the Saturday morning one, and be good to go. But you certainly want to see him going. Tristan Newson as well, another linebacker. That would be bad if he was out. And then Luther,
I believe Drinkwitz said he's expecting him to play.
Okay, well there you go. Yeah, sometimes I love when the availability reports just straight up clash with what the coach says. Those are the best. And then Luther Burden's listed as probable. And then on the Auburn side, outside linebacker Jamonta Waller, tight end Brandon Frazier are both out, and then Tyler Scott and Champ Anthony, 2 DBs who Adam talked about, are both out, and that actually could be interesting when it comes to Auburn secondary. We got into that with Adam, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, there's the availability report. Wanted to talk about that on Thursday when it actually dropped. Yeah, not good, not fun at all, not fun at all.
I wanted to add one thing. During the press conference on Tuesday, our friend Gabe DeArmond asked asked Coach Drinkwitz about medical red shirts, and he mentioned that Khalil Jacobs did play like a 1 quarter in a 5th game, so they're not totally sure if he could apply for a medical red shirt. But he said in this quote, "I was going to make a joke about the NCAA, but they make themselves."
Oh,
yeah, that's great. Drink. How about we learn a little timing though? Like, let's just go and let's
I'm a little
see
bit
a win this weekend. I really don't need the coach taking pop shots at the NCAA right now.
My first instinct was to laugh, and then I just am like, you've earned no right to me to make those jokes.
It is a pretty antiquated rule. I think that if you play 4 games and then play a single snap of a 5th, you go from, yep, you'll probably even get the medical red shirt, to, nope, you have no shot, you can't even apply. But
it's like it takes me back to Daniel Tosh, who's a comedian. He had a joke about how with the
I know where this is going.
With like a Make-A-Wish Foundation, once you turn 18, they hold the doors on you. They don't let you in. It's one of those kind of things where it's like right when like the clock strikes midnight on your 18th birthday, or right when you touch the field for 1 snap in your 5th game, you're done. Like they just don't even look at you anymore.
Yeah.
It's that one, and then in basketball, how you can't play a single minute if you're trying to redshirt as a freshman. That needs to change. I don't get how you can play 4 games in football and you can't play at all in basketball. Like, you can't even chuck you in there for 3 games against crappy non-cons.
It's 4 regular season games too. I mean, you can play every postseason game in football and not have it count, which is insane to me.
Yeah, the theory was you could play the final 4 regular season games, the SEC championship, and then 3 college football playoff games and still keep your red shirt.
And that's a new thing too, because originally,
that's this year.
If you go back to the 2022 season, they were looking at guys like DJ Westlack to play in the bowl game, but he had already played 4 games during the season. They didn't want him to play that 5th to burn a red shirt. They ended up getting a waiver for some of those guys to play.
Yeah.
Some use they were. I don't know if they even saw the field in the Gasparilla Bowl.
They did. It was special teams.
Silly special team snaps.
Eric Lincoln needed his guys out there.
Needed them. All right. Yeah, that's injuries. And then, we're going to get to the interview with Adam. But first, and we had Adam provide his score prediction when we did the interview with him, but we saved him the trouble of hearing ours. So we're going to do that now. You can see on the YouTube if you're watching, Adam went 35-24 Mizzou to beat Auburn. So we'll see if maybe Adam wins the closest score. But Payton, Kenny, which one of you would like to go first for your score prediction for Saturday?
I'll go first. This is a game I think both teams really kind of desperately want to get.
Kenny, I think you should leave the 84-0 you just copy pasted there, actually. Yeah. Payton's going to go with that again.
But I think Missouri is playing for a whole heck of a lot more at this point in time. So I think that it's a home crowd. I don't think Missouri is going to be in a position to overlook anyone at this point. Even with Alabama looming, I think Auburn has their full attention. I think Auburn will come out. I think they'll run the ball pretty effectively early on. I think they'll get 20 plus, but I do think Missouri will be able to. It's such an inexperienced secondary, as Adam Cole points out, and it's thin. you'd have to think like Missouri gets a couple of those to fall. So I'll take Missouri here. I'll take them 31-20. I think Missouri wins.
Kenny?
Yeah, I'll go second. That's kind of funny. My number was going to be 31 to 21. You took 31-20, so I need to fix yours. So that's only a difference of 1 point between us.
So you're going
Great. I'm being
31
price
to 1.
righted again.
You're being prices right again. This is the number I had in my head for the whole day, so I'm going to stick with it.
Oh, and Kenny, if the people weren't already aware, you won the last week because
By default.
Mizzou did not win 83 or 84-0. So that was a shot in the dark. Yeah, I'm real worried. I don't like this at all, honestly. I get that Auburn's secondary is really inexperienced. I think Mizzou's is too. I know Payton Thorne is kind of a horrible quarterback. But
Take kind of out of it.
he's a horrible quarterback, and I think that does help Mizzou. I think it helps if it was at home. If this was on the Plains, I would be picking Auburn to win, I think, all day long. I don't. Mizzou showed me nothing to suggest they can handle any sort of pass rush against Texas A&M, and that is the one thing that Auburn has. And I think Mizzou could lose this game, and I might pick them too. To be honest, I'm going to go 33-30 Auburn. I'm totally down.
If they give up 33 points to this Auburn season, there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations that need to be had. I mean, that's a joke.
It doesn't feel out of the question to me, though. Maybe this is me being the negative Nancy, but that's what I've decided I'm going to be. I am super low on this team. They have no leaders. I totally think they could come out and crap the bed, especially if even at home. I get it's homecoming. I know you two are gonna be there, so I hope this score doesn't happen. But I'm really worried. I think Auburn has weapons. I think I get Diego Pavia is a better quarterback than Payton Thorne, but I mean the man had receivers wide open down the field a lot when Mizzou played Vanderbilt. Like Auburn's receivers are better than Vanderbilt's. They're better than Texas A&M's. Jarquez Hunter's a good running back. If Auburn can string together a couple good series where they actually give him the ball, I think he can hurt them. I think this pass rush can get to them. The only thing for me will be, if Mizzou can really finally look like their last year selves, then yeah, they can absolutely burn this secondary. But I'm not going to pick it to happen. I'm gonna go anti-Mizzou this week, and I think we start having those uncomfortable conversations. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, that's my negative take. Do you guys want a crazy spin that I was thinking about before we started on this game? Because I was looking, and I know Gabe DeArmond quote tweeted this a couple of times. I forget who it was from ESPN. Someone had a tweet from ESPN that was about how it was like Alabama's loss isn't that bad because this is a good Vanderbilt team. And Gabe quote tweeted, I think twice, saying, reminder, Mizzou beat said Vanderbilt team and was punished in the AP poll for it. And that got me down a whole rabbit hole. If Mizzou does come out and absolutely steamroll Auburn and look like, last year's Mizzou on offense, again, I don't think it's going to happen. I just predicted it to not happen. But if it does, and this Alabama team loses handily to Tennessee, stuff gets very loud very fast. Because this is not what I think is going to happen, but there's going to be an awful lot of noise. That would be an Alabama team that has lost 2 out of their last 3 games. The only one in between is a 2-point win over a South Carolina team who's not good. If Mizzou looks competent, and I think in order to do that, you have to beat this Auburn team by 3 or more touchdowns. Brady Cook maybe 275 yards, Luther Burden probably over 100 receiving. If it can be that Mizzou, it gets really loud. That's all I'm saying.
3 touchdowns is lofty. Because how many times did Mizzou even do that last year?
I'm just saying
Tennessee by that much, but
I'm just saying it has to come close to that for me to be at all convinced that something could happen the week after.
There's really nothing that anyone can do. Like Mizzou could win this game by 80, and Alabama could go out and lose by 50. I probably would still pick Alabama to win next week. I have no real faith that Drink I just don't think Drink knows how to prepare them for road games.
Yeah.
Like that is just genuinely coaches have flaws, and I think Drink's flaw is that he does not know how to get guys ready for the road. It just doesn't. It's been a consistent problem. And yes, last year they went 11-2. They won they lost to Georgia on the road. They beat Kentucky. In fact, they took a big punch from Kentucky on the road and came back and steamrolled them, It's not like Arkansas was basically a non-factor road game for them, but I've seen way too many times where this team has gone on the road under Drink and absolutely laid an egg, especially in swing games. I mean, that 2022 Kansas State game is still the lowest. If it's not A&M, that was the lowest of the low for Drinkwitz. He just doesn't know what he's doing on the road, it feels like. So I really don't think there's anything Mizzou can do that would convince me to pick them against Alabama. I think Alabama is going to be pretty heavily favored, and I think they're probably going to show why that is.
You got to take on any of that, Kenny?
No. I still think, there are like instances where this isn't, the same Alabama team we've seen in years past, but then they've shown it in different games, holding off Georgia. But I just don't see a world where that kind of happens. I can maybe see a world where they kind of keep it close for a while in a game against Alabama on the road, but don't really sneak out the win. It's just what goes back to, something, and Payton hit it on the head. You just haven't seen those instances where they've just gone on the road and just handled a team necessarily, outside of maybe that South Carolina game. And I don't think you can compare that South Carolina team to this Alabama team. I think we'll know a lot more after this Auburn game. I think we will. I think there will be a good amount of takeaways, especially if this team handles Auburn well, and not just saying win by 3 touchdowns, but just keep them from moving the ball well themselves, not forcing turnovers, having to punt, 3 and outs, all this stuff. But I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say on Sunday after watching this game.
Yeah, I don't even mean it from a predicting Alabama standpoint. I'm just trying to say there is a world where the noise gets very loud if you do handle Auburn. Our opinions aside, there is a fan base right now at Mizzou that is upset about how the Vanderbilt stuff was handled with Alabama losing, Mizzou winning. It's going to be, if Mizzou handles its business against Auburn, it's going to be pretty loud, and Alabama loses to Tennessee. I think there just will be a lot of noise. Then our opinions aside, I think there will be a lot of people that might think, which feels crazy to me because I agree. I don't have that feeling like a Mizzou team can go in and do that at all with how, Drinkwitz prepares for the road, like Payton said, with how they've looked this year. But it's just kind of crazy to me that if, depending on how 2 results go this week, the narrative feels like the vibes could feel a lot different heading into that game, depending on what happens. But I overall agree with you from an outlook on that game. But what matters, obviously, is what happens, on Saturday against Auburn. And I agree, win or lose, there's going to be a lot of takeaways. This team is going to it's either going to show its ass or it's going to show up finally. So we'll see. We'll see which Mizzou team we get. That's a good primer, because now we're going to talk specifically about Auburn with Adam Cole. So we won't dilly-dally any further. We'll get you to that interview and finish with quick hits. So enjoy Adam Cole. Okay, we now welcome on a very special guest. We are bringing back the return of doing opponent previews for Mizzou's upcoming games. And looking ahead to Auburn, we got Adam Cole, the Auburn athletics striker for the Opelika-Auburn News. Definitely didn't have to ask Adam how to pronounce that before we started. Adam, first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. And my first question right off the bat, how many more games did Auburn win this year if they had Diego Pavia instead of Payton Thorne?
6.
6 more?
That's maybe a bit funny of an answer. He's unreal.
He is.
He is unreal. And I mean, I have bared witness to it twice, actually. Last year was the New Mexico State game. And then I was looking at their roster, like, who the heck is this guy? And I was like, his face is really familiar. And then I was looking through his bio. the junior college national title game is in Little Rock, Arkansas every year. And I used to be the high school writer for the Democrat Gazette, and I had to cover it that year. And it was Snow College, which is like a touted football JUCO in Utah, and then the New Mexico Military Academy, which ran the triple option. And they had a couple high major D1 guys, and then they had a quarterback who was going to New Mexico State. And I didn't think much at the time, but I was like, oh. I realized I've interviewed Diego Pavia before, and of course they won. They upset Snow, but no, he's unreal. And yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they won 6 more with him under center, just because it's just like, I don't know how the heck he's doing it, but no, we'll see. I'm eager for that Auburn Vanderbilt game this year. I'm curious to see how it all goes, but yeah, that's a good question, because he's just been something else, man. But
Before we get into the next question, I mean, was there any interest from Auburn to even like look at him when he was in the portal?
not that I know of. I mean, there's been a lot of names the last 2 years. I know, like, I think Grayson McCall got another look this year. He got a look the year they wound up with Payton Thorne. I'm trying to think what's his name. Jordan McLeod was a guy. And he was at James Madison, if I'm right. And
Yeah.
Caden Salter was another guy who, like, it looked like they had Caden Salter, and like that made enough sense because Liberty quarterback played for Freeze, and then that just fell apart for whatever reason, and then eventually the tune changed to, well, we're going to put it back all on Payton. But yeah, I mean, they looked around at a few guys. I'm sure there's other names that I pre-wrote that I'm just totally blanking on right now, but I don't think Pavia was on that list. And I will say, as much as he's a gamer, and I wouldn't be shocked if he led a team like Auburn to 6 wins after the start they've had, like, I don't know what kind of fit he would have been in that offense. I mean, he's got legs, which, Thorne is, like, underratedly has a bit of a scrambling ability, but like I don't know what kind of fit he would have been. And I mean, truthfully, like, in hindsight, I do think they kind of made the right decision, so to speak, of like sticking with Peyton Thorne and just trying to pour in around him, because, like, I'm taking the long answer on your question here, but like that offense just is like, and I'm not in the meetings. Brian Harson said that much my first year here. The reporters aren't in the meetings, but like that offense just can't not be complex. And I think if they would have tried to run it back with a new quarterback and had to hit restart, like I don't know how it would have gone. I really don't. And there might have been a guy out there who figured it out. And I wonder how much of Peyton's issues have been just like a mental thing. It seems like it, and it seems like there's a lot of just internal pressure for everything to be perfect. Like, they don't play loose. And it's, sure, the margin for error is really small, but I think the decision to roll with him made a lot of sense. Now, after you lose to Cal in week 2, and you're asking all the same questions that you asked last year about the offense, it does not look like the right decision. But yeah, they definitely they tried their hand at a lot of guys, but I don't know that they really tried to go for Pavia.
You mentioned Hugh Freeze there, and I think this is a good place to bridge off that. And there was a comment this week. You can interpret it how you want to interpret it, but he said to me, some of the better coaching jobs are done with those lesser rosters in recruiting. You look at people like
Mhm.
Eli Drinkwitz, Kentucky's Mark Stoops, and heck, Vanderbilt's Clark Lee now too, that I think are doing incredible jobs. I understand where he was going with that comment and just, talking about recruiting in general. But what's like the overall just feeling after like a comment like that before you play the team that you're talking about?
I don't know that there was much malice meant in it. And I mean, sure, and I mean, I know with Drinkwitz's history, it's probably on a whiteboard somewhere in Columbia right now. But like, because he talked a lot about Eli, and I guess I mean, they both have the Gus Malzahn connection. All roads lead to Malzahn Boulevard, I guess. But he said that they've become like incredibly close friends, and I think he's really impressed. And I mean, I think the avenue he was trying to go down with that is, obviously Mizzou has done a bang up job recruiting, like, in the last couple years. But I mean, that's not a place that, like, I think a lot of people make the argument that, like, Auburn is a top 15, top 20 program in the country just because of the facilities, and they're sort of one of those SEC staples that you think of. And I would say that those 3 schools you mentioned just aren't schools that you think of at the top. Now, obviously, Mizzou is top 10 team for the bulk of the year, and Luther Burden, and now I'm blanking on all the other big name recruits, but I mean Burden obviously is one. The defensive lineman whose last name I can't pronounce,
Williams
one
Nwaneri.
air. Okay, yeah, I mean that's another prime example of like, and you flipped, I think, both those guys from Oklahoma, which is like obviously Drinkwitz has done a bang up job recruiting, but yeah, the vibe from that was I don't think there was really any malice meant in it. Now, obviously, I think it can definitely get interpreted that way, but I think the only time I've ever seen the claws come out from Hugh Freeze was after the Arkansas loss for some reason. But yeah, I don't know that it was really meant to be like a stir the pot kind of thing, but 'cause, yeah, he had a lot of great stuff to say about Drinkwitz, just like he thinks he's like a talented coach, and all that jazz, and they've become really good friends. So I don't know, but I also would imagine too with just the way that he's kind of done the job, like I'm sure that is fodder, so to speak, for motivation and whatnot.
Right. And sticking with Hugh Freeze, I mean, when he came back like into the SEC after the Ole Miss debacle the first time, I mean, it was a rather soundly praised hire. And I mean, he's a heralded offensive mind. He has put together really, really, really strong recruiting classes, but the results just have not been there on the field just yet. So I'm just kind of curious, what's kind of the vibe around Auburn just towards the direction of the program right now? Is it still relatively positive, or is this like a game that Hugh Freeze really, really like? Auburn obviously doesn't want to go 0-4 in SEC play, but is this
Yeah.
like a game that they're really, really, really kind of hoping to get?
I think it's one they feel like they can steal, so to speak. I don't know if there's a prediction section at the end of it, so I don't mean to spoil it, but like, I think Mizzou wins. I just do, and I don't know that that really comes down to talent on rosters or anything like that. And I mean, sure, Auburn's had a bye week, but they just look so nervous, and that's a very oversimplified piece of analysis, sure, but it's I mean, they should have beaten Oklahoma. And the craziest part is that, Peyton Thorne had arguably the best game of his Auburn career. And, the one mistake he makes shifts the whole tide of that game. But like it's stuff like that this year. It's just like you could also contend that they haven't gotten a break. And so I'm sure they feel like they need to win this one. I would imagine that they feel like they can win this one. I don't know if they will. I think the reality is like you got to think that you can beat a Kentucky team. I'm trying to remember the rest of the schedule. Like home against Vanderbilt. Like obviously Vanderbilt is red hot. That's going to be tough, but I'm sure they feel like they can win that one. I think A&M at home. Now, obviously, I'm sure the folks in Columbia would feel differently about this considering what just went down, but like I think that's one they could win. And I think after that, shellacking in Mizzou, like I'm a lot higher on A&M now than I was at the start of the year. But I'm sure that like, everybody talks about home field advantage and Jordan Hare magic, and I don't want to spiel that narrative more than anybody should, but I think it's something that's kind of real. And I think that those are games they feel like they can win. For some reason, I think let's see, it's Mizzou, Vanderbilt, A&M,
They got UL
Alabama, and then
Monroe.
yeah, Monroe. That's going to be. I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued because we
Five
didn't
and
say
one
jack
Warhawk.
about. Yeah, we didn't say anything about New Mexico State coming in last year, and then look what happened there. And you're going to get General Booty, and them at the height of it
That's
all. And
right.
we'll see if they're losing. Maybe they'll have their eyes locked in on it a little more. But they definitely overlooked New Mexico State last year, and so I think the fifth game is South Carolina, and I think that's when you feel like you can win. You're at home, but no, I think to answer your actual question, I think the vibe around here is people are still like pretty high. I think even if the season goes down in a tailspin and they don't make a bowl game, I think the biggest thing you have to look at, the linchpin in all this, is the recruiting. He has done a great job. I think that the reality is I think he needs to go back to the drawing board and rethink what he's doing offensively, because sure, he, reinvented the dynamics of SEC offenses with the RPO in like 2014, but guys, that was 10 years ago. I was a freshman in high school. Were you guys even? I mean, I know you guys were alive, but you were barely alive,
A
right?
lot we weren't alive.
We weren't thinking yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. How old were you guys in 2014?
13,
13.
14.
13. I didn't
Okay,
even
so
know what an RPO
we were
was
all,
when before he ran it.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, what? But yeah, case in point, like I just think he's kind of lost his fastball game planning wise. And I think that happens. I mean, I think after he beat Nick Saban felt like offensively, like his staffs had sort of lost their fastball, so to speak, offensively. And then, he goes out and hires Lane Kiffin as his OC. And I think Auburn needs something like that. I think, he did a really impressive job to me this offseason of when he made his hires for his first staff. It was, I am going to hire proven X's and O's guys. Now, there were a lot of guys he hadn't worked with so that he could handle the bulk of recruiting. And what you saw with the staff shifts this offseason was very, I'm going to hire guys who know my offense. I'm going to go back to handling more of the X's and O's. And I'm also going to hire people like Charles Kelly who are going to pick up some of the recruiting slack. And the recruiting hasn't really dropped off. And I think the biggest thing is like, as long as you don't finish with less than a top 10 class this year, and quite frankly, like, if you can still reach the goal of a top 5 class, which seems in reach still for them, which is crazy to think about. But if you can do that, I think he's going to be okay. And I would imagine that they're going to go out and get a quarterback in the portal this offseason. But yeah, I think the vibes are still okay. I think truthfully, there's a lot of people carrying his water a little bit. But I don't think the seat is that hot right now. Now we'll see 6 games from now just how hot it really is, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I would be shocked if like Auburn moves on from Hugh Freeze after 2 years, and I don't think they should either. I really think this place to go on one last little tangent before the next question. The really interesting thing about Auburn is you look at Gene Chizik, and it was what, year 2, year 1, he wins a national title and strikes gold with Cam Newton, and then 2 years later he's 3-9, and they fire him, and then they hire his OC from the Natty teams in Gus, and he makes it to the championship game in 2013. And everybody has this thought process in Auburn that, oh, well, look at what Chiswick did. Look at what Gus Malzahn did. Like, you can win fast here. You can win fast. And sure, you can win fast here. You could probably win fast anywhere. But the reality is when you have 2 straight coaches who set the bar that high, and then the next one, they should have moved on from Brian Harsin. And I think it was the right move because he wasn't recruiting. But like, he's not winning right away. People get frustrated, and now Hugh Freeze isn't winning right away. And it's like, well, everybody thinks about them. And it's like, those are exceptions to the rule, and I think if Auburn wants to do something right and do something sensibly and realize that, like, yeah, it got lucky for a stretch of the 2010s, like, don't waste 5 years on Hugh Freeze. If it's time to move somewhere between year 3 and 5, make the move, but like, give him time, you know?
Yeah.
Because clearly he's recruiting, and he's got to work out some kinks in the X's and O's for sure. But like, all you're going to do is set yourself up for failure if you're like, oh, well, we need 9 to 10 wins by year 2 every time. It's like, you're not, like, take a step back and chill the heck out because you're not that guy. You thought you were that guy, and you were that guy for a little bit, but like, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy. So that's my spiel on that. But yeah, the short answer is I think the vibes are still pretty okay, but they could get hairy in a turn. So we'll see.
I want to ask, I mean, you mentioned the recruiting, getting into like, just this Auburn team a little bit. I mean, I think the Payton Thorne struggles are pretty well documented, but this is a team with a lot of skill guys that I look at, especially on the outside. I mean, Keandre Lambert-Smith's good. I feel like I've been talking about, or I've known about Fairweather, the tight end, for like a couple of years now. They got the 2 guys in Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman, the big in-state gets at wide receiver. They've got Hunter at running back. Like, there's feels like there's a lot of weapons still on this team. I'm curious, when you look at Mizzou, I mean, this is a secondary that Eli Drinkwitz has straight up said there's basically a 1A, 1B at corner instead of having a definitive, CB1. I'm curious, when you look at this Auburn team, where can they maybe hurt Mizzou the most on Saturday? And like you said, kind of steal a win.
See, that's really interesting because I've yet to do like the real deep dive on like this Mizzou team this year, but like that is Auburn's problem this year is they have, and one of them is now injured. So they have 5 scholarship cornerbacks rostered. 4 of them are freshmen in some form, redshirt or true. And so I
Nice.
think that's going to be a big issue. But I mean, it could be the inverse, for Auburn and Mizzou, because I mean, the reality is like, another guy that like you didn't mention, but Malcolm Simmons was part of that like freeze four.
Mhm.
He's been arguably their best like freshman receiver. Like he's unreal. Like his speed is crazy, and he's dynamic. And Cam Coleman's dynamic too. I mean, Cam went to high school up the road. I covered him last year. Like he is as advertised. Perry Thompson hasn't played as much, but like I think that if Auburn can go to Columbia and like make the passing game look like feasible, functionable, I think that's a huge morale boost. I think that's a place kind of from what you said, like they can steal a win. I think the one thing that like we took from Freeze's availability this week was he straight up said that like we need to give the ball to Jarquez Hunter more, which was a big issue for the first half of the year because they have all these RPO designs and whatnot, and you could check out of a run, whatever. But it's like dude was averaging like, oh gosh, I forget whether it was Oklahoma. It might have been Georgia last week, but he was averaging like 8 yards a carry. It's like feed him the ball. Sure, like one or two runs might go for 1 or 2 yards, but he's due for a huge gain. And like he's always been proven to be one of those guys. And so like I think that'll be big. And I think defensively Auburn's gonna have a huge test, but like I really think the biggest X factor for Auburn will just be like on the offensive side of the ball because their defense is proven capable and pretty decent at times. But like, if you can't get the offense going, it's just more of the same, And it's like, well, are they really as close as everybody keeps saying they are? I think the short answer is no until they prove it. But yeah, I think kind of what you mentioned. I'm curious to see that now because I think that could be a place where Kirby Smart had a great quote about it last week. He's like, we want to catch Auburn now. He's like, we don't want to catch him at the end of the year because he's like, you can see Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons. He's like, those guys are growing up like on the film, and we've seen that the last couple weeks. They both look a lot better in recent weeks, so I think that'll be a really interesting kind of place to watch for sure.
Outside of those weapons and maybe those positives on the offensive side, what would you say like the biggest weaknesses? I mean, outside of quarterback play, we talked about that, but I mean, where can this offense like? Where are some of those holes that Mizzou might exploit?
They have no holes. They're perfect
They
in
are
every
really
way.
bad turnover wise.
Well, okay, see, that's a really big thing, and it's looked a lot better the last couple weeks. I mean, between Oklahoma and Georgia, I think there was only one turnover. So if they can limit that, I think that'll be really big. But also, the reality is, I mean, like Hugh Freeze talked about it this week. Like Corey Batoon was on his staffs at like Liberty and Ole Miss. That's going to be
Mhm.
really interesting to watch to see if they can navigate some of that. I think offensively, just the biggest thing is just the functionality of it all. And I guess that goes back to quarterback play. So but like they just still look so stagnant at times. They seem like they can't put together drives, but like I'd say maybe the biggest thing is really just like the I guess the passing game as a whole. It's just like that's just sort of where it like kind of falls flat sometimes, and they don't seem to lean on the run as much as they probably should. And the turnovers is a really great point. I guess I'll be curious to see if they maintain it, but I really just it all goes back to me. It just all goes back to the quarterback play. I think and if they don't hand the ball off as much as they should, I think they'll be in a whole world of trouble. But that's been the last 6 weeks or so.
Would you say this team is a Deuce Knight away?
Could be. They could be a Walker White away. I think like
Mm.
both those guys are phenomenal. Like I don't know that they're gonna play a freshman. I don't think they'll play Walker this year. And Walker's, I mean, Walker, like I covered Walker in Little Rock and he was a sophomore. And I remember the first time I interviewed him, I walk up to him, I'm like, man, where the hell is this kid going to college next year? Because he's like 6'5" and just like broad shouldered, and he's got like scruff everywhere. And he was a sophomore, and he's just always been a dude, and I think he'll be a lot of fun to watch. I think Deuce Knight's going to be a guy who could bring a lot to them. But yeah, I mean, they really are truly a quarterback away, and whether that's a true freshman, whether that's a transfer guy they bring in next year, the UNLV quarterback, everybody's been making that joke in the media room that like watch him come in or whatever. But yeah, I think they're a quarterback away, and I think it's going to be really interesting to watch whoever the next quarterback is, because the reality is if that guy is playing the same way Peyton Thorne is and is kind of having the mental sort of things, and you're seeing that, it's like that's when we get into Hugh Freeze maybe needing to be on the hot seat, because it's like, okay, you change the quarterback and nothing's changed. So like, look at what hasn't changed here, buddy. Like, are you gonna change or are you gonna keep up your old ways? And I do think they're genuinely like a quarterback away from being like fringe top 25 at worst, like really good team. But obviously, Hank Brown wasn't it. They aren't going to turn to Holden Gariner. There's just no way. And then I don't think they're going to play Walker White. So, they're just going to have to try to make it work this year. And then who knows what happens next year.
I mean, the offense for Auburn is, pretty well earned, the story, just because it's been, as we've mentioned, just kind of a mess. But it does overshadow what has been a pretty damn good Auburn defense for a large part of the year. You got guys like Keldrick, Falk, Jalen McLeod on the D line. What issues do you think that unit will present for Missouri? I know you mentioned the cornerback room is thin, but what maybe is something that Mizzou fans should look out for?
I think the front line has been their best unit this year, and they brought in, I think, like 3 Power 5 transfers. Those guys haven't been much. Or no, they brought in 4, and 3 of them haven't been much. I think it was Gage Keys from Kansas. Trill Carter was at, I think, Texas. And then Isaiah Rakes came in from USC by way of he played at Texas A&M last year. He was the double portal hopper. That's a very eloquent phrase. But no, those guys haven't done much, but like Philip Bleedy from Indiana has been pretty good. And then like their freshmen have just been stellar. There was all the talk of Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson, but like, Keldrick is a true sophomore, but like could have been a redshirt freshman who's been killer. DeMarcus Riddick in at the linebacker position, he's been unreal the last 2 weeks, and he's like fast. They've been spying quarterbacks with him, and he's just electric. And then the guy who I'm just like, hell yeah, is Caleb Harris. Was like a high 3-star safety at Thompson High School here in the state, and they're like a powerhouse. Super productive as a senior. He's been like their best safety, if not one of their best like DBs, and he's just been cooking. So those guys are like guys to watch. But I really think like as far as units go, like the front line, really the front 7, kind of the whole box, they've been pretty good, especially against the run. And I know obviously with Mizzou, it's you look at Theo Weiss and Luther Burden and kind of the aerial attack. And I know Cody Schrader's gone now. I don't know how good Nate Noel has been. I think he's kind of the guy, if I'm right. But
Pretty solid,
that'll be the spot to watch as far as like where Auburn might shut them down. But at the same time, Mizzou might take advantage of them through the air. They probably will, and they probably should because they're young and they've got some guys. Caleb Harris, Jay Crawford, Kay Lee, like they're young guys who have all looked pretty good, but they've got some young DBs too who have just kind of gotten burned as you would naturally expect. And so I'd imagine I bet we'll see at least one 50-plus yard touchdown to Luther Burden or Theo Weiss this weekend, if not a couple.
Boy, that would answer a lot of Mizzou fans' prayers right now, to say the least.
Yeah.
Because it would kind of be a weakness against a weakness right now, I would say, because Missouri's pass attack has not been as good as you'd expect.
Yeah. So, get your parlays ready.
Yeah, I was going to say that this sounds like a passing yards over game. This maybe a team total over game. Just we're no free advice, but there's maybe something to look forward to.
You got to Max Baker for that.
I want to ask you specifically about the men in the trenches, Auburn's offensive line. How has that kind of held up? There's been a Mizzou pass rush that's had its moments, at times, but I don't know if it's been, their kind of main guy heading into the year was Johnny Walker. He's been pretty quiet all year. They have some injuries, but how vulnerable can Auburn's offensive line maybe be in terms of letting teams get to Payton Thorne?
Johnny Walker, I remember writing up his commitment for the Missourian. That's how old I am. But no, right tackle is going to be a spot to watch. Xavier Miller's kind of been dealing with a hip issue, and I think he re-aggravated it against Georgia. So if he doesn't go, that'll be really interesting to see, because there was it was really that, that 3rd week of fall camp, right? That's when everything goes to shit.
Yep.
That's when we quit talking about how much the strength coach has him in line and how great the culture is. And they brought in Percy Lewis from Mississippi State, and the thought was he'd be left tackle. And it sounded like, well, Percy Lewis hasn't figured it out, so we're going to have to do some reshuffling. And that's when everybody hit panic here. And they started a redshirt freshman, Tyler Johnson, at left tackle for like the first couple games. And then I think, oh gosh, it might have been week 3. I can't remember. There was one week where he just kind of got walloped, and they moved Percy back to left tackle, and he's been okay. But I mean, there were points against Georgia where it was just like the left side of the line didn't exist. And that's been another issue for quarterback play, and like Peyton Thorne is he hasn't had stellar protection the last 2 years. And last year it was a lot of Xavier Miller on the right side, and this year it's a lot of the left side, whether it's, Percy Lewis or Tyler Johnson. But they've been okay. They're great in the run game. I mean, they've been that the last 2 years, but it's really the pass blocking. So yeah, I mean, Mizzou's pass rush might have some real opportunity there. I think that'll be a big thing to watch for the offense, for Auburn's offense, as far as just having success. But yeah, it's been kind of shaky, and right now it's still on about as shaky ground. It's just a different font of shaky, if you will.
A different font of shaky.
Yeah.
I like it.
The last time these two teams met, I believe you were there.
Don't
for this
remind
one.
me.
Oh,
Don't
geez,
remind
here
me.
we go. Here we
Can we
go.
skip it?
No. I want to
I'm
ask you.
kidding.
Yeah.
In case
I
you
mean,
haven't
were-
caught on, by the way, for the people, Adam is like ourselves, a Mizzou grad, and knows the pain as well as the
Yeah.
of everything. Sorry, Ken.
So yeah, you were there. I was there for the Missourian too. So I mean, has this game come up at all? I mean, what are like the differences? I know
All
it's a
the
different
time.
staff, different quarterback.
All
But yeah,
the
just
time.
walk us through
We
it.
we talk about it all the time. Of like, I'm trying to remember what game it was this year. It was the Arkansas game. We were like, this might reach 2022 Mizzou game levels of just assery. Um,
Awful.
It was just terrible, man. Good grief. That game was horrible. That might have been the worst football game I've ever covered. But obviously I think things are very different now. Where did Mizzou end up that year? Like where did they wind up?
6 and
They
6.
somehow squeaked out a bowl bid, and that
Mhm.
they lost to Wake Forest in the Gasparilla Bowl.
I remember that. They lost to Sam Hartman.
Yep.
Yeah. Because who could
Last
forget
game
that
of Wake
face?
Forest.
Am I right, guys?
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
beautiful,
Right.
beautiful
Once you
man.
see it, it's there forever.
Just shed a tear. Shed a tear just at the beauty.
It's
Anyways.
like the hot Squidward meme. You just burns in your brain.
Exactly. He's hot Squidward. He's very hot Squidward. Anyways, I'm gonna quit crushing on Sam Hartman now. But no, we talk about it all the time as far as just, well, could this game get any worse? At least it'll never be as bad as the Missouri game in 2022. But I think it'll be different this time around, because I mean, obviously it's like, last year truth be told, like I thought going into last year, I was like, Drinkwitz is gonna get canned. Like that was my thought.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then obviously that did not happen. And I think he is very secure there for a good while. And I think, it's a different team now with Auburn. And I mean, the other thing too, going back to what I was spieling about earlier about give Hugh Freeze time, is like the mess that he inherited was kind of gross. I mean, that roster was just not SEC caliber at all. And, it's a rebuild. And I mean, I think he probably set himself a little high. He said in his press conference, he was like, I think we can win quick here. And, you know, what are we looking at now? We're looking at, I think it was like through his first 18 games, he had a worse record than Brian Harsin, which is kind of an indictment. But, I still think it's a better team than that team far and away. I mean, you don't have, I think it was like TJ Finley and Robbie Ashford duking it out for quarterback that
Man.
year. And those are some
Wasn't
names, man.
Zach Calzada there as well?
Yeah. Zach
Oh, my
Calzada, Auburn legend.
TJ Finley was in uniform, but he wasn't playing. He was kind of like a, hey,
Yeah.
this guy's here if we need him, and he just didn't have a helmet or anything. He was just in uniform.
Yeah,
Hey,
and
TJ
Robbie was the quarterback for.
TJ Finley's played
Yeah.
against SEC competition this year.
Yeah,
Is
he
it
played
Western-
against Alabama. I forgot about
He
that.
sure did.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I was like, when did he transfer to Western Kentucky? Because I just remember last year he was like cooking in San Marcos for Texas State. It was like,
Yeah.
well, look at that. He figured it out. But no, I think it'll be a better game. And if it's not, I think Callum McAndrew and I will both like kill each other in the press box. That's probably a lewd joke that I shouldn't make, but like I just, he's been there through thick and thin for me. We'll get the job done. We'll end the misery, at least for our eyes. But no, it should be better than that for sure. But that game was, ugh, that was a bad
Yeah.
one.
It's
I
pretty
didn't make
bad.
it to the press conference because I had to change my whole
You went
lead.
and got a drink? Is that what happened?
Yeah, I found someone at the concourse and they took me out. Just
Yeah.
Hit the
we went out
town.
to Sky Bar and just
There you
drank
go.
the night away.
Jeez. Nightmare.
Okay,
But
I have one last serious question before I ask that, I do want to ask like a question, like what in the world, how did the press box, like when they realized like, oh my God, Nate Pete just fumbled through the end zone? Like I
mean, we were
really
all
want to know what the
shocked.
yeah, okay. I
And
kind of
everyone
figured it
was
was
like,
just
what
too
happened?
tough.
What happened? And then, it was, you realize what happened and you're like, what? You're like, no, that's not how this ends. And then it's like we get Brian Harsin like an hour and 20 minutes later, because that was the thing. He was notorious for Hugh Freeze is the inverse. Hugh Freeze gets there right away,
Love
always.
that.
And Harsin, like I remember Harsin's last press conference, I think it was almost 2 hours that we didn't get him. Well, and that was Harsin. I mean, I got, God,
That should be
I didn't.
punishable by like a year in prison.
By law, by
That's a
law.
crime. Yeah.
Anyways, I have opinions about that clearly, but no, like he comes in and he's like, well, hard fought win. We really went out there and executed and tackled the ball carrier, and we're like, that was pretty ugly though. And he was like, nah, he's like, we won it, we're upward momentum. And it's like, you can say that you need to be better and that you'll take a win, but that was ugly and you need to do better. And, so it was just, man, dark days, guys.
Dark days.
No kidding. For
Not
both.
to invoke Barry Odom, but yeah.
My nickname, or go ahead, Payton.
I was just gonna ask. I mean, like, I know you mentioned like just back on this game. I know you mentioned Hugh Freeze said we probably need to run the ball more. I mean, you mentioned Hunter's been pretty good when he's gotten the ball. He's averaging close to 7 yards a carry. Definitely a capable back. I mean, do you expect like what's kind of the game plan you're expecting from Auburn? Are they going to try and just brute force the passing game, or do you expect them to actually start to run the ball a lot more?
I'm a firm believer in believing things when I see them. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is they have talked a lot about needing to do certain things differently this year, needing to coach them up better, needing to communicate better, all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, on the field, it just looks the same every time. And so if they do the right thing, which is going to be just design run plays, you know, get to second and short, get to third and short, and then run your RPO fuddy duddy, whatever. Like, great. But the reality is, I think it'll be more of the same. I think they'll come out with this RPO look. I think they'll try to stuff the ball where they don't need to. I think it'll be like there was a drive at the end of the second half where Auburn had a chance to take the lead on Georgia 2 weeks ago, and it went like one carry for 1 yard. And they were like backed up really far, and then it was like a deep shot to Cam Coleman on second down, which I'm like, why are you doing that? And then it was another handoff on like 3rd and 9 to Jarquez Hunter that went for like -2 yards, and then you're punting it away. And then Georgia does what Georgia does, and they go and they middle-eight the hell out of you, and they scored, I think, another touchdown with like a minute left. And then it was like, yeah, the game was very out of reach. And so it's been like 3 weeks of that now between Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Georgia. And the right thing to do would be to just simplify it and hand the ball off. But I am going to believe that when I see it. So
This just sounds. I feel like we are kind of just set up for just an absolute stinker. But then I go back to how good these pass offenses could be, and so maybe it'll just be like a crazy
there's
shootout with
so
no
much
defense.
potential on both sides of the ball, like on both offenses. Like that's what makes this whole thing so titillating. Like
Yeah.
it could be one hell of a ball game, but also, it's like I thought Arkansas Auburn was going to be a shootout. Like I just thought it was going to be. I thought the defenses hadn't proved themselves yet, and I just thought it was going to be lights up. And then it was like, no, not at all. So we'll see. But I think it could be a lot of fun. Emphasis on could, but it could
Could
be a
be.
lot of fun.
It's tough to beat the last game, but I think it's a good reminder that this is also a homecoming game, and that game in 2022 was a homecoming game. So maybe that is the last ingredient.
Curse.
I
Let's
hope
not
this
put that energy
ends.
into this game, man.
I hope this ends with well, not Damari, because Damari already had one of those. I don't wish it on anybody, but I hope this ends with an Auburn ball carrier fumbling the ball into the end zone to seal a Missouri win. I think that would only be right. I think that would only be
Jeremiah
right.
Cobb, maybe.
Their running back. I like their running back room a lot. Is the thing. I think Damari
Payton
is super
Thorne on a keeper.
capable. Yeah, or whoever. I don't know that we even need to name a name, but
Just somebody.
somebody. Heck,
All
make
right.
it an offensive lineman pass play. Anyways,
Trickeration. Statue of Liberty gone bad. Adam, we do predictions for every game, so I'm gonna just ask for yours. We're gonna save ourselves the trouble because we're recording the rest of this show later on. But for yourself, give us a score prediction, and we have a record book of these, so it'll be kept permanently. So you're not off the hook if you get it wrong.
Don't do that to me, man. I'm gonna go like 35-24 Mizzou.
Okay.
I think they'll
11
put
points.
I think they'll put points on the board, but I just Auburn's not there yet. And when they show it, I'll speak more to that. They could be there, but they're not there. And who knows? Maybe a bye week is enough to turn it around, but just with everything we've seen, I'm not convinced yet.
I like it. And then we have some fun ones for you to end the show off. So I'll just ask first. I already mentioned it. You graduated from Mizzou, so this is a homecoming game. I guess it is the homecoming game and a little bit of a homecoming for you. What are you looking forward to with being back in Columbia? Are you going to go anywhere?
Yeah, I'm from Northeast Kansas originally, and so my brother is taking work off on Friday to come in, and then I'm getting there tomorrow. I'm driving up bright and early. And then my folks are getting back from a trip and they're gonna meet us on Saturday. And with it being a morning kick, hopefully we'll have evening shenanigans. But it's like I know that like Pizza Tree is number one. I might go to Shakes for like a pickle and a stag, but like I'm a firm believer in the fact that like anybody telling you that Shakespeare's is the best pizza in Columbia has either A, never been to Pizza Tree, or B, is lying to you.
Good man.
It's just I'm like tasteless. I'm like it's tasteless is what that is. Um Labau. I don't know if Labau is still there,
Oh
but
yeah.
that was
Yeah.
that was like
That
one of
place
my
was good.
favorite restaurants. I've got to hit one of the diners, probably Broadway. Even though I know it's not necessarily the most heralded. I forget the name of the thing, but it's just like a pile of slop. It's
Yeah.
like gravy and chili and
Chili.
that, and then like I don't know. I need to get a drink somewhere, but it's like, do I really want to brave Harpo's at like 25? I'm a little nervous about that. Definitely not doing Willie's. Some fun memories there, but like
You could hit like an ITAP maybe.
ITAP, I loved ITAP. I miss ITAP.
Yeah.
I used to hang out with Callum a lot at ITAP actually, so ITAP might be the move. I don't know what Social Room looks like now. I've heard it's kind of fallen off. Like Uprise, that might be an option. I gotta go to Hit Street Records. I
Definitely.
collect a lot of records. I gotta go to my guy too. I think he's in Columbia now because he used to be in I think Ashland, but it's a smaller shop. But like King Theodore Records, Jesse Slade. I know him. Like that's a very niche reference maybe, but I gotta go see him. Got a lot of things to do. Been debating going to Iron Tiger and getting a tattoo. Haven't been there in a while. So we'll see. There's a lot of stuff. I really like, and I say this as a guy who grew up a Jayhawk. Best decision I ever made was to go to Mizzou for college. Like
Aw.
it was such a good 4 years and it was such a great town to live in and like so many awesome, awesome memories. So yeah, like when I realized it was homecoming, I was kind of like, oh God, because like everybody was gonna be back and
Yeah.
like converging, and it's like how many people that I went to college with that I want to see are going to be there, like probably not many, but, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be the first time I've been back since like summer 2022. So I'm looking forward to it.
If a fumble out of the end zone for a game happens, you go get the tattoo. Maybe you make that deal.
Yeah,
with
there we
yourself.
go. There we go. Yeah. That might be it, honestly.
Might have to happen. Might have to happen.
Yeah.
Get a tattoo of the
There we
score.
go. There we go.
You don't realize this, but you have big shoes to fill, or you had big shoes to fill coming onto this episode because you were the second person to do an interview with us while in your car. The first
true.
one was Barrett Bannister, who you probably did
Oh, no
cover at
way.
Mizzou. So yeah, you did a
Yeah.
great job. You
That's
you did better.
phenomenal. No.
When we had Barrett on, it got really dark though because it was late into
Mhm.
November and he was sitting in
Yeah.
a dark car talking to us. So he was great, but you did great as well. The one thing, Adam, since I've been following you on Twitter for probably the last 2 years now, I know you're a big Halloween guy. You're also a big Simpsons guy. Can you just walk us through that?
Oh, man. How much time do we have? We got
As
another
much
hour?
as you want. I think I told you
No,
15 to 20 minutes, and we're going on about 42. So we're on your time
okay.
at this point.
Well, I really like I do like Halloween a lot. And I enjoy a good scary movie. I'm not the best at it. Truthfully, I made myself a goal of like watching 31 scary movies this month. I've watched 2. So we're struggling
All
right
right.
now
Catching up to do.
incredibly. But I love The Simpsons. That started at Mizzou. That started COVID year because I'd always wanted to watch every episode. I just thought that'd be a killer bit. Be like, yeah, man, I've seen every episode. What about it? And Disney bought Fox to where it lined up that they put The Simpsons on streaming like February 2020. And naturally, that whole COVID thing happened. And
Yep.
then by September, I'd watched every episode. And I don't know if they still offer the class, but there's a like Simpsons, like you analyze The Simpsons as cultural satire. That was a class that you could take at Mizzou. And it was, I think, my spring semester, senior year, and the class was filled. And, I mean, this was textbook. I used to do this all the time. It's like, class you want to take. It's like, just email the professor. What's the worst they can do? Say no. And I emailed him and I was like, hey, I understand the class is full. I don't know if you're taking more people, but like, here's like, I forget, it was like 3 reasons. And like 2 of the 3 were that I'd just recently watched every episode, something like I'd always been interested in the class. And then I was like, and in the right light, I look like Milhouse Van Houten. And he was like, that's pretty good. He's like, I opened one seat and I took it. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I always, every Halloween, I do the same thing with my Twitter where I put the little pumpkin emoji and I make it that same still from the Shining spoof of Treehouse of Horror because that whole
Yep.
scene is just hilarious. But all the Treehouse of Horrors are just like incredible. Was watching the one last night with like the Attack of the 50-Foot Ads and Groundskeeper Willie as like Freddy Krueger. Like they're incredible. But yeah, so that's the story behind that.
I love it.
Love it.
I've also seen. I don't think I've seen all of them. I've seen most of the Simpsons, so I can
Yeah.
I can back that one up. I was just looking up a clip like the other day of it's who's the guy, the doctor with the really deep voice.
Dr. Hibbert.
Yeah, Dr. Hibbert. It was like a compilation of him. I was just watching it, and
There's another great Treehouse of Horror bit from the episode where Bart's like evil twin like lives
Yep.
in the
attic.
the attic and
Yeah.
it's Dr. Hibbert comes over and like holds up a mirror to him and it's just an empty frame and he punches him through the mirror. That's a classic. I see that one like all over my Twitter timeline. But yeah, no, it's such a good show. It's just phenomenally done.
Yeah.
Phenomenally done show. But yeah, no, big Simpsons guy.
You mentioned there, I mean, during COVID, you were binging The Simpsons. Something else you did during 2020 was you covered Eli Drinkwitz's first season at Mizzou for the Missourian. So just curious, like, do you have a favorite memory from covering the beat that season? It was a very weird year, probably very challenging. And then second part to it, very quick part to it. How disappointed were you that you didn't get to cover that year's Music City Bowl?
I'll answer the second part first. I think I had to cancel like a Airbnb or something, but I was pretty relieved, truthfully. It had been a super long year because I mean, Kenny, I know you can speak to it. Jack, you covered men's basketball, right?
Yep.
And then Peyton, have you done a beat
I
for the
did
Missourian?
women's basketball
Okay.
for Mizzou.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, when I was in school, we had folks come back and speak to like, we still had like APSE and like Awesome was still going on, the student chapters. I don't know if they're still trucking along or not, but we'd have folks come back who had done the Missourian football beat, and they were like, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. They were like, I have yet to have a job that's harder. And we had folks who were like covering pro teams and stuff like that. And I'm like, what? I'm like, no way. And then I got into it and I was like, they were right. And so, yeah, what made that season that much harder was like, I don't think I shook a single hand that year. I didn't meet anybody formally. You couldn't sidle after practice and try to source build or get in with anybody. And so I think the memories are just kind of weird because it's like, I mean, there was like the Florida Halloween game that year where, we almost had like a slap box match between Drinkwitz and Dan Mullen. But like I covered that from my couch and like, I think Max was over. I covered it with Max Baker and Andy Kimball for the Missourian. And I think I lived with Andy. I think they were both over. And then we lived with Bennett Durando, who was interning for the PD at the time. And we all covered it on our couch. And it was like, that was it. And so there's a lot of that. I think that like, my favorite memories, so to speak, and the ones that I'm proudest of are two feature stories I did that year. And I'll try to be super brief because I know I've obviously run like a good bit over time here. But the first one was my internship got canceled that year. I was going to work the desk at the Missourian that summer after that happened. I knew I was going to be covering Auburn, I do that all the time. Mizzou football, not Auburn. And I was like, well, just give me the first cover story. I'll have 3 months to work on it. And it was like, let's do the Drinkwitz thing. And I actually had a very eye-opening conversation with Wright Thompson at the start of all that. The editor at the time was Michael Nisley. He was at ESPN before he got there. He connected me with Wright, and we had about maybe a 20-30 minute phone call at 7 a.m. on a Friday, just about feature writing and where I wanted to go with this. And he was kind of like, you should sniff this out and sniff that out, and worked on, a couple avenues for a couple weeks, and it was just kind of dead ends. And then just kind of went back to the drawing board. And, it was like the big thing was like, you know, let's look at the job search because people are always interested in that and try to find something new. Let's look at, what it looks like for him to build a program in year one because he did that at App the year before. And then kind of the whole tension point of the story was like, he said App was not a stepping stone job, and then he was gone less than a year later. And it's like, would he do that at Mizzou? And I was super proud of how that story turned out. Just so proud. And right. And it was the first phone call we'd had since the initial one, but I texted in the story when it came out and I just said like, thank you. I'm like, I know we haven't talked in a while, but that story, that conversation kind of kicked my ass, truthfully. I won't go into detail, but he kind of put me in a blender at the start. In a good way, in a very good way. Like I'm
Yeah.
so grateful to him, and he's been great to me ever since. But I told him, I was like, that conversation, like in a right way, kind of kicked my ass, and I don't think I would have been able to do this. And he called me, and we talked over just the last 3 months, and asked me how I was going to celebrate and all that stuff. And it was one of the sweetest things. He was like, I need you to do me a favor. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, don't forget this. He was like, just don't forget what you're feeling right now. Cause he's like, if you do this for a living, you're going to write so much crap. You're going to write stuff you wish your name wasn't on. You're going to write stuff that feels like it's a miracle that it even got filed. He's like, this is why you do it. He's like, you do it for the stories like this. And he's like, you don't get them as often professionally, but when you do, you got to cherish them. And that is something that has stuck with me for forever. And then the second one was the last cover story I did. I got assigned to do the cover story the Arkansas week, and Barry Odom was the DC on that team. And
Yep.
shout out Pete Bland. He wanted me to do like get into the firing, and started working on it like 6 days before print. And so naturally it's like I gotta have it in on Wednesday. And I'm like, Peter, that's gonna be a tough pull, but I'll see what I can do. And I was talking to a source on background for it, and I stumbled upon um a story about Brian Nooner. If you guys know who that is, he was at KOMU for a while, a long time ago, and he's still in the Columbia community. He went to Mizzou, but he had been working a summer jobs program, running a summer jobs program for the football team on his farm, and this has been like 2 decades. Like Cale Garrett was working on the farm that year. One of the first guys to ever work on it was Barry Odom, like as a player. And I
Wow.
was like, I remember like my immediate thought was like, how has nobody written about this? And I was like, surely there's something shady here. Like, surely there is something under the table. He's going to be like, by the way, you have to say this is volunteer, like, because we pay them and I don't want
They
to
get
get.
an
And
envelope at the end when they're done tending
yes,
to the
yes.
cows, and
And so I went on a tour of his farm with one of the Missouri photographers, Daniel Schular, who he's in Tulsa now. And I just feel like I need to shout him out. He's always been a badass and he's such a good photographer. But we're doing a tour. And at one point I remember Brian said, and by the way, there's something I think you should put in the story. And I'm like, oh, here it comes. And he's like, we check in with the compliance office every year to make sure that we're paying them like an under, under the NCAA like limit or whatever. And I was like, holy shit. And I still think that is one of my proudest accomplishments was I did not shake a single hand that year except maybe Brian's. And I flipped that story in like 5 days, talked to like 12, 18 people who had all worked on the
wow,
farm. Case Cook was a shockingly good interview for that story
Wow.
because Case would talk to us in media and he'd be so short. And then he gave me Case's number and I was like, well, Case is going to tell me I got to go through the SID. And I texted him, I was like, hey, man, you want to talk? And he was like, yeah, I'll call you tonight. And great. It was like a phenomenal 7-10 minute interview. Gave me the scoop that he was going to cut the mullet the next year, which made me laugh a lot. But no, like the fact that like, think about it, like we were not in person for anything that year. And I got a story that was like decades old and I won a Hearst Award for it. Which was fucking awesome. There we go. There's the one F bomb.
there you go.
But yeah, those were probably like my two favorite memories. And I mean, those are like two of my favorite memories in journalism as a whole. I mean, that the grind of that year and that job is insane and you feel so much pressure. But like, it's like Whiplash-esque if you guys have seen that movie,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. And it spits you out and you're like, man, my ass is beat, but like I'm that much better like of a professional for it. So those are probably two like my favorite memories for sure. But that whole year, man, yeah, it was a weird one.
There you go. I don't know a better way to end a show. That was great. I think we have to have Pete play that last segment in the sports class. Just inspire some
He
people.
hasn't been for like the last 2 years. He has not been replying to my texts and emails. I don't know why. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's any bad blood or anything. I wouldn't be saying that
Right.
if I thought there was. But I am planning on when I get in Thursday, I'm going to my Airbnb and then I'm driving to the Missourian and I am popping my head in his office and being like, "Sup, fucker? Like, how you doing, man? Been a
Would you
while."
say you mentioned the beat was like Whiplash-esque? Is Pete Fletcher in this
I
respect?
I think I think you could contend he's Fletcher-esque. I think I will say this. Pete, like, I mean, the editors I had that bookended him, Michael and Brett, were both
Yep.
awesome. And they were great because they had worked in the industry and they had all these stories and all this stuff. Pete was just as good. And I have to give Pete his flowers because he is so technical and he's intense. He's really intense. But he made me such a better writer, such a better editor. Like he did a bang up job. And he was my editor for that one semester. He was the guy I reported to for Tiger Kickoff. And him and like, Max and Andy were great to work with. And Christina Long
Hmm.
was our Tiger Kickoff editor, and she was phenomenal. It was a really fun semester. And Pete, yeah, like he's intense, man, but he gets you right. He gets you right. Like
Totally.
I'm really glad I had that semester under Pete.
Yeah. I'd retweet that for sure. That'll be a fun meetup for you when you get to go back and see him. Adam, this has been awesome. We appreciate you taking the time with the preview and all that stuff. My final thing is just, what are you going to be for Halloween this year?
That's a tough one because there's an Auburn writer here who does a Halloween party with his wife every year and nobody dresses up. Right? It's like
Halloween
it's like an
party.
oxymoron of a Halloween party. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go. I'm a big Hunter Thompson guy. So like I've always wanted to just do the whole Raul Duke fit, but like we're approaching that time again where it's like, well, I gotta get the stuff. I gotta hop on
Yeah. You
Amazon. I
got to
gotta get
start.
Bezos's money so I can get it in time. But
Yep.
um we'll see. That's usually like the one. I used to keep a list of the costumes, but there weren't many on there. The only other one was like Matt Murdock, because that's the only
Okay.
celebrity comparison I've gotten that I'm like, I see that. Like somebody told me in high school, you look like Charlie Cox from Daredevil. And I'm like, Yeah. It's not so much in the face. It's in the hairline. I'll say
Yeah.
that. It's in the hairline. But
Fair.
no, so like those are the two on the short list. But yeah. Yeah.
I like it. All
I
right.
thought you
Yeah.
were
You'll
making a
have to,
joke there when you said you could see it. The
No.
comparison.
Oh, that's okay, that's pretty good. I didn't even think about that.
For
But
those who don't know,
yeah,
Daredevil's blind.
yeah.
he is blind. But yeah.
There you go. Well, Adam, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. We'll have you back on basketball season when Mizzou hopefully has won a conference game when they play Auburn. How's that sound?
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But
A lot of big
yeah,
challenge ahead.
no. Sounds good.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, quick hits time. We'll finish up the show. We've got Jersey of the Week. Kenny, I will throw it to you for the first Jersey of the Week.
Yeah, a sad one to bring to you guys early on in quick hits, but Darius Robinson, former Mizzou defensive end, now with the Cardinals in his rookie season in the NFL, announced on Wednesday that his mother passed away. Very unfortunate news. It is very saddening for a guy that's been through a lot and is just, I mean, everyone loves Darius Robinson for what he did on the field, what he did in the community, and then his mother's passing happens right before he's about to make his NFL debut in the coming weeks or as soon as he can, as he's trying to get through an injury with Arizona. It's very saddening. We don't have to talk about this too much if we don't want to, but prayers to Darius. Thoughts are with him. He's a great guy, and we were wishing him the best.
Yeah, I think you pretty much nailed it. I mean, that's very, very, very sad. I'm glad she got to see her son like graduate college, get drafted to the NFL, and fulfill like his lifelong dream, essentially. That she no doubt sacrificed, Lord knows how many hours of her life to help make happen. So I feel for Darius. I can't even imagine what he's going through, but
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see the Mizzou community kind of pour out their support for him. Again, it's a testament to what Kenny said. We all loved Darius Robinson when he was a player. We're all continuing to support him in his NFL journey, and but this is just he's a great dude, and it's just super sad to know that he's hurting. He's given us so many great memories as fans, and so it is good to see that the Mizzou community is kind of there for him in this moment. But obviously, yeah, like Kenny said, right before his NFL debut, it's very sad to see this. But yeah, like you guys both said, our thoughts are with Darius. Hopefully he has a good support system around him still to help get him through a tough time. But our thoughts are with him, and hopefully he continues playing and has a great career in his mom's memory, because I think that's what she would have wanted. Like Payton said, putting in all the sacrifice she did to see him graduate, to see him succeed at the SEC level. So thoughts are with him most definitely, and looking forward to seeing him take the field as well for the Cardinals soon. I know we're all really excited to see how he'll do at the pro level, but thoughts certainly with Darius right now. No easy way to segue off of that, but Payton, you've got our next jersey of the week, sir.
We'll go to another great Mizzou player defensively, Sean Weatherspoon. Spoon. Last time I saw him, he was doing the pregame video for the 2022 Missouri home games. But now he's coming back to Mizzou for homecoming. He'll be the one banging Big Mo before the game. So that's super cool. Hall of Famer. I had to pick him as my jersey because Mizzou just decided they didn't want to post the uniform reveal this week. Thanks, creative team.
I have a theory about that. Does that mean maybe a surprise kind of, unique jersey for this week? And if so, what would you guys
Auburn?
like to see? But a homecoming.
Power Cat would be real cool. I think a Power Cat surprise would be very worth it. Maybe putting the stripe back on the pants would also build up some goodwill, because this is getting ridiculous.
Payton's only surprise is that he just wants to see.
They look like Pop Warner pants.
I'll use this as an excuse. How excited are you guys to be back for homecoming? I forgot to ask you that at the top of the show.
Good. I love Columbia. Love Mizzou. I'll never pass up the chance to go back when I can. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun trip. It's also going to be kind of bittersweet. 2 years older now. I wish I was still in college. Feels like I'm still in college at times. But it will feel weird that I'm going to be a little bit older than the students walking around campus.
I feel that like it was also a thing last year, like just seeing Mizzou kind of like it's just weird seeing it like just carry on without you in a way.
Yeah.
Because you just like when you're in college, you're thinking like I don't know what it's gonna be like when I'm gone, but then you
I'm here forever.
like you just see how it's just like it's just weird. It's not a feeling I can really describe. It's just odd.
Yeah, it does feel strange. I'm right there with you, Kenny. Sad I can't be there with you guys. If any of you loyal listeners of the Unwritten Rule see Payton or Kenny, please address Kenny as Cheese when you see him.
And please don't come up to me.
Payton, and also offer
Don't
to
talk
if
to
you
me.
see Kenny yelling at the water cooler, you'll know it's him. If he's at the big water cooler in Furrow. So there you go.
Don't tell him you're a Mookie Cooper fan because he might get confused and start yelling at you every time Mookie Cooper makes a catch like you aren't a Mookie Cooper fan.
Yeah. My jersey of the week, staying in Tigers in the NFL, kinda. Harrison Mevis is my jersey of the week. He's getting a workout with the Buffalo Bills. So good luck to Harrison Mevis. Hopefully he can get.
I have bad news.
Oh
He
no!
was not the kicker that was signed out of this
Ah!
draft. They signed
This
a
is
different
already
kicker.
this has already been a dead Tigers in the Wild. We're scrapping this.
It's done. He did not get signed.
All right, I'm not picking the Bills in the playoffs because they clearly don't know kickers because they didn't sign Harrison. Don't they have a good kicker? Do they have?
Yes, they have Tyler Bass, but he's been kind of shaky.
Oh.
So they're signing insurance.
All right, what team would you guys want to see Harrison Mevis on? That's how I'll salvage this.
Chiefs.
Panthers row claw in Poland.
There are Mizzou ties on that team.
That's the
a
only
lot
reason
of
why
them.
he knows it, probably. I will say the Green Bay Packers. I think he'd look good in the green and gold.
Jesus.
And they need.
They also just signed another kicker, so good. Another great pick there.
Raiders.
They have an all-pro kicker.
I'll say Raiders. So
you got to pick a more realistic one. How's
oh my God.
How's Jason Myers been?
Fine.
Okay.
He's been fine. 49ers. Didn't Jake Moody get hurt?
Yeah, Jake Moody got hurt. There you go.
He'll be the Cody Schrader replacement. All right, next.
Captain, he's the main bird.
Moving swiftly on because that was unfortunate. Kenny, main bird of the week.
My main bird of the week goes back to D-Rob. Payton was talking about on Sunday how we were not getting any updates from the NFL on the Mizzou front. And then right after we got done recording, Mizzou football posted this photo of Tyron Hopper and Darius Robinson doing a jersey swap at the Packers-Cardinals game last weekend. So I'll give it to both of them because Tyron Hopper now has a bird jersey. Always so fun to see a jersey swap because you see these sometimes on the field during games and you're like, oh, I don't really know where they went to school. But when you know where they went to school, and you know the two players, you covered them or got to watch them play when you were in college, it's always really cool to see it at the pro level.
It's really cool to see a couple of Cotton Bowl champions doing it too, you know, swapping stories, probably water cooler talking the Cotton Bowl,
One of them didn't play in the Cotton Bowl.
I know, and that's unfortunate because I remember Drink saying like Tyron Hopper was working real hard to try and make it, and he just missed it.
I have two notes on this. One, I love Darius Robinson's full all red Cardinals sweatsuit that he's got on here. I know he's got the black hoodie, but that looks fire. Also, look at the absolute essay in the 5. Tyron Hopper or somebody else wrote a paragraph in the 5 when they signed whatever. So I
think Darius Robinson would have signed his jersey.
Darius Robinson that just threw me off. Darius Robinson wrote a paragraph to Tyron Hopper.
Like I know it's well known, but like he is dwarfing an NFL linebacker. He is so big. He's a huge dude. Yeah, and then Tyron Hopper just like, I love you, man, or something.
Darius got a whole paragraph. This is like the yearbook. Yeah, when you write like a super nice message and then you get it back.
Yeah. To your crush.
Yeah, you get it back from the crush. They're like they just write hags. Sign their name. Brutal.
Moving on.
Moving swiftly on. Main bird, Payton.
It's almost time for the best college sport to come back, college basketball. The college basketball AP poll got released. There are 9 SEC teams in it. Number 2, Alabama. Number 11, Auburn. Number 12, Tennessee. Number 13, A&M. Number 16, Arkansas. Number 19, Texas. 21, Florida. 23, Kentucky. 24, Ole Miss.
You actually sounded sped up there at first. Good job.
Mizzou did not get a vote, if you can believe it. But it's coming back. This is the SEC is a literal gauntlet this year. So if Mizzou can even like throw elbows, maybe be like a top 11 team in the conference, you might be looking at like a situation where they're on the bubble at least. I mean, that's how good this conference is. Like every win could be a quality win.
Yeah, I'm so excited. They released like the Ken Palm rankings the night before this came out as like a little tease. Oh, sorry. We have a lot of basketball talk on this pod. I actually looked at the doc too. I promise I did that, and I just it went in my brain. I'm too excited about basketball. All I'll say then, we'll get to that later. I love this. It's no secret on this show. My other job is covering Alabama. They have a really good team, and I'm very, very excited.
Then it's a depressing top 2. It's number 2 Alabama and number 1 Kansas. Those are 2 teams I just can't stand. Obviously,
that's not a good look. God, not a good look for Payton. He's not an Oklahoma guy. All right, my main bird of the week's gonna go to Dennis Gates. In case you weren't on Mizzou Twitter recently, it was SEC tip-off, SEC Media Days, whatever you want to call it for basketball. Dennis Gates, Mark Mitchell, and Tony Perkins were there. Tony P and Mark were donning the new Missouri Block M jerseys that they're going to wear all season, which were very clean. Dennis was in his usual suit. I was at SEC Media Days, and I saw Dennis just in like a regular tracksuit, and it was very jarring to see him not in a full suit and in like something else. I was taken aback.
When I played basketball against him, he was in a tracksuit.
Oh, well,
when he blocked me and I tripped.
Yeah, you did not even look like you were playing the same sport as him.
I kind of forgot that Dennis Gates played like college basketball and played basketball because I was like, oh, I can get past this old guy who's just a coach now. And I did like one move and like he blocked me and I fell as he blocked me because I think his hand like pushed through me and he had to catch me as I was falling to the ground.
Oh, and he caught you.
He was my king.
He put not just any he played at Cal.
He's probably like, you all right?
Legit program.
My only other thing, I mean, it was a good media days. I was there. I caught up with Dennis for a little bit. We chatted. I did ask him about the jerseys. He seemed very excited to be bringing those back, and he seems like he's in a good spot. I think he's excited about his team, which is obviously great. So, nice to see him. I'm so excited for basketball to be back. On that note, best thing you learned, Payton.
Best thing I learned. Ken Palm rankings also came out the night before. Missouri is a top. They're 53 in Ken Palm. That's not the end of the world. That is certainly a solid spot to start. For reference, I mean, they were ranked in the 60s by the end of the year when they made the tournament in Dennis Gates' first run. So could be a strong league. Again, there could be a strong team. But again, to point out the depth in this league, 53 in the national polls is 13th in the SEC for Ken Palm. And I believe that is also where the media put them, 13th. So nowhere to go but up, obviously, after last season. Let's just not even talk about that anymore. But yeah, I'm excited. College basketball is just so fun, like especially at the beginning of the year when you have so much hope. Just so many new pieces and everything. So looking forward to it.
I love college basketball so much. I'm so excited. Kenny, you have any Ken Palm takes? You have a namesake.
I know. This is like my whole thing. This is how I did all of our bets. Like you guys just forget. It wasn't spoilers. They weren't predictions. They were spoilers.
No, you weren't posting predictions. You were telling spoilers.
Yes, thank you. I totally forgot because I haven't said in a while because you guys don't let me talk about Ken Palm anymore.
Yeah, ring.
Yeah, tough. I love Ken Palm. Anyway, best thing you learned, Kenny.
Best thing I learned. This is from KMU8. Tyson Ellison. I don't know if you guys knew this when I sent this to you guys, but Tyson Ellison is on the Mizzou football team, and he's a walk-on from like an area high school in Central Missouri, and so he got to do the sports cast about the UMass game, and so he said highlights in Mizzou's first ever game against UMass. There was also a first touchdown and a first sack for young players on the Missouri roster, and he got to reply to a comment, "Thank you. Reporting is fun when you get to brag about your friends." So really cool.
That's so
Instant
sick
for him. He didn't get to travel with the team, but still got to report on his friends and his guys.
That is cool. I love that he used the hashtag Chase2Dreams in it. So like he's got the dream of being a football player and being a newscaster.
That's awesome. Yeah, good for Tyson. I love to have some KOMU. Maybe they can get they've got like a nice source and a reporter all in one potentially.
Boonville native.
Oh, love Boonville. Yeah, good for Tyson. That's super sick. Yeah, to report on your friends and teammates. That's awesome. My best thing I learned this week: Mizzou will face an exhibition game against Lincoln. It's
the Lincoln Blue Tigers.
Yeah, the Lincoln Blue Tigers? Is that what they were called? I couldn't remember their name. Yeah, this is happening Saturday, October 26th, which I believe is next Saturday. And yeah, they're also going to have a watch party for the Alabama game. So you might get, if Mizzou does pull off a crazy upset against Alabama, you might get the obligatory live shot, and it'll say like Mizzou Arena, and everyone will be storming the court.
Yeah, for the very, very heavily attended exhibition this will be. But I wish it was streamed. I'm just that starved. Like, I really am ready to watch basketball again. Like, I have the bad taste out of my mouth. Like, wish it was streamed somewhere, but it is not. But it's still a cool idea to have the watch party right after.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I'm so excited for college basketball. Kenny is going to be just annoyed to bits when me and Payton just get to start having college basketball quick hits. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be great. That's all I got. Payton, you have a quick joke? Kenny, you have a quick joke?
You know what, Kenny? I'll let you off the hook this time. No joke this week.
Wow.
I'll get back to it Sunday. But you're a busy man. I'll let you off the hook here.
All right. That'll do it for the show this week. Thank you to Adam for coming.
This one comes from our favorite. I'm kidding.
Enjoyed the interview. We'll do more of those with some writers too as the season goes on, probably for basketball as well. So stay tuned. Enjoy the Auburn game. Enjoy homecoming. If you're an alum and going, I'm sorry I can't be there. I wish I could. Join
we don't
Payton
care.
Kenny, but shut up. All right. Until next time. See you later.